Oh, I'm live. Okay, I'm so sorry. 7 minutes late. I had to like re-download. Oh my gosh, am I actually live? Wait, I think I am. We're telling you, your followers, that you've started a live video. Hello, hi. Yes, okay. Oh my gosh, it's working, it's working, it's working. So essentially, this was just an elaborate plot on my part to shower, to have an event, create an event so that I would shower. And is the way that I'm, Alex, I see you, is the way that I've like turned it okay? I'm just going to assume unless you yell at me. Yay! Okay, she says. All right, cool. So here we are, folks. Here we are. This has been wild, and I've had an interesting week. I was in the UK. I was filming Jurassic, and we went on hiatus, temporary hiatus, and flew back from the UK home. And I've been in self-isolation for 7 days now, and I have 7 more days. I feel very, very, very grateful that I'm able to see my children through the window, but it's been a lot for everyone. It's been a lot for everybody. And it's interesting because at first I went through all these thoughts like, okay, so I should do a lot. I should get a lot done. And then it's like, what's the point? And then it's a lot of worrying about others and feeling kind of, like literally helpless because I myself can't actually go and physically help. So in times like that, I really rely on creativity, imagination, the stuff that soothed me as a child, honestly. Like when I was a kid, and if I was upset, I was grounded in my room or whatever, because we're basically all grounded right now. And I remember I would just, I'd kind of get over the upset, and then I would let my imagination sort of take over, and then I would start creating things and playing, and it was sort of the ultimate escape. And so for me, I've been this week doing a lot of writing on some days, other days like no writing. But I've now kind of 7 days in, I feel like there's a little bit more of a routine. And I thought, if I do an Instagram live, I'll shower and I can maybe share a little bit, and even better, hear what all of you are doing. So I want to hear about all of your routines, your creative practice, your writing, your imagination, just kind of the things that you're doing to keep that going, but more than that, allowing that to be something that is a respite for yourself. So, okay, without further ado, I made little notes. All right, so one thing that I will say is the most important thing is that you don't have to do anything. You really don't have to do anything. And to feel that sort of like burden of responsibility, like now is the time when I need to get like my novel written, or I need to go back and reorganize everything, or get shredded, or whatever it is. I mean, those things can obviously be very constructive, all of them. But also the pressure of having yet one more thing to do can be equally debilitating, and then there's the feelings of shame and all of that when you don't actually do it. And so I just want to say, for those of you who are listening, who are creative individuals yourself, which everybody is creative. But for those of you who already have a practice in place, that this is not me saying like, do it. This is just me saying like, this is sort of what I've been doing for myself, which has been, like kind of successful, but also not perfect. So hold on one second. Sorry, little text from my best friend. They're listening to Winnie the Pooh right now. It's my goddaughter. Okay, so that's just important. There's a lot of pressure to make a product during this time, but there is happiness and joy and relief in the creative process. And so I wouldn't necessarily, this is going to be a little bit contradictory because I'm going to say things like creating deadlines and whatnot, but I wouldn't actually be so intense about your deadlines. And feeling like, you know, like, oh, I didn't make it or whatever. Like, just be super gentle. Be really, really gentle with yourselves. Oh my gosh, I'm a little bit, it was the hot shower I just took. Okay. All right. So, couple of things. So that all being said, this is for those of you who want to have a structure, who are craving something, who are just, you know, listening because you're totally bored, whatever. Hopefully this is a little bit helpful. So, all right. So for me, I kind of early-ish in the week, I was like, okay, here's a couple of books that are, soothing to me. And then here's a couple of books that I haven't really picked up for a while. And I started to look at some of them, and every morning I would sort of open up a different book and just sort of read and reflect, you know, if it was actually relevant or whatever. And I have the two books. I'm gonna mention two books right now that have been particularly helpful to me. And I actually teach a class at New York University in Tisch. And these two books are on my syllabus for my class. So here's one: Daily Rituals, Women at Work. And men, you'll love this too. It's great. It's great. It's so fascinating. Such a great resource. And it's more than anything, it's really helpful because you basically are reading these accounts of all of these, you know, writers and poets and dancers and incredibly creative individuals who you've looked up to forever. And then you learn what their routine is, and there's some things that you borrow. And then there's a lot of things that you're like, oh, it's not actually as punishing as I would have thought, or they only, you know, they don't necessarily do it every day, or, you know, whatever it is. It just sort of enlightens you to, you know, not everyone is a creativity machine, and I'm certainly not. And a lot of my friends kind of like perceive me as if I am that way. And I should say, like, this week has been a perfect example for myself, where I'm like in this room for 7 days without my family, without friends. And I have gotten stuff done, but there's also, you know, it's like when I've got a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, and you sort of fantasize about being home alone, like without your children, what you're going to get done. Well, here's the answer. Some, but not everything that I would think. Okay. So anyway, I'm just going to read what this is. 143 artists on how they paint, write, perform, direct, choreograph, design, sculpt, compose, dance, etc. And this is by Mason Curry. And they're short. They're relatively short excerpts, as you can see here. So I'll just kind of in the morning wake up and then just read through something, or I'll read it at night, and it's soothing and it gives me ideas. And sometimes it lights a fire, you know, underneath me. Sometimes it's just sort of like, oh, that's fascinating. Another book that I've really, really gone to again and again and again, that helps to kind of contextualize my own creative and artistic practice, is Big Magic. Big Magic. Some of you might know about this book by Elizabeth Gilbert, Creative Living Beyond Fear. I cannot tell you all how much I love this book. I've read this book a couple of times. I pick it up often. I've listened to the audiobook. I've gotten excited about other people listening to the audiobook, and I'll listen to it again with you, beside you, or in the car. So I just absolutely adore this book. Here, let's see, maybe there's a description that would be helpful. Yes, okay. Readers of all ages and walks of life have drawn inspiration and empowerment from Elizabeth Gilbert's books for years. Now this beloved author digs deep into her own generative process to share her wisdom and unique perspective on creativity. With profound empathy and radiant generosity, she offers potent insights into the mysterious nature of inspiration. There are some incredible stories. Whether we are looking to write a book, make art, find new ways to address challenges in our work, embark on a dream long deferred, or simply infuse our everyday lives with more mindfulness and passion, Big Magic cracks open a world of wonder and joy. So this is just, I cannot recommend this book enough. And yes, you can listen to it on Audible as well. So basically, one thing that I kind of started this off by saying, like, don't worry about deadlines, but I'm going to talk a little bit about deadlines, or just sort of guidelines for yourself. So if you say, okay, if you pick out a book that you're like, okay, this is a book that I could read. I'll just share what I do. Okay, so I take out a book and I'm like, oh, this is a book that I'd like to read. And so then I'll say, like, all right, so I'm going to be here for 7 more days. If I read 3 poems a day, I'll have read through, the first chapter or whatever it is. Or if I read a chapter a day, I'll get through half of the book, or, whatever little sort of like micro, again, it's not a deadline. It's like these little kind of signposts for like, okay, I'm getting through stuff. I'm moving forward. Because what I've found a little bit is, it's the circumstance that we're all in right now. It can be very overwhelming, and we don't really know what's going to happen necessarily. And we are worried about so many of our loved ones and so many individuals who are so incredibly vulnerable right now. And that is an all-consuming feeling. And so just by saying, like, okay, it's almost like a little bit of a checklist for yourself. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to read 3 pages per day. That's just a thing that I'm going to do. You might find that that's something that is ultimately nourishing and helpful. Something else to mention. I should have brought it out. Do I have it here? The Artist's Way. My baby brother, who's calling me. Reed Howard. He's awesome. Okay, so Artist's Way is a really terrific template for creating ongoing sort of like creativity in your life. And what I mean by creativity is just, it's like you're closing your eyes and you're basically creating something from nothing. You're creating something from nothing. There was nothing on the page, and you create something. You put something there, and or there's something on the page and you create something new. I keep referencing a page because for me, I write, but for a lot of you, it's it could be dancing, it could be music, it could be anything that's something from creating something from nothing. Okay, so setting aside writing time, or when anxiety peaks, force yourself to write. Okay, so writing, I found, because I've been, whenever I get like to a fever pitch, I've been opening my computer and I've just been like, and I'm not writing about the situation necessarily. I'm writing actually something it's a character, like a short story for this character named Margot, and it's been interesting because when I'm calm, when I'm feeling cool, that's sort of like one kind of writing. And then when I'm feeling acutely anxious, it's another kind of writing. But I'm finding it's actually, both are quite useful. And I normally in my life, like I try to get myself to a centered place before I'm working, and I'm realizing like maybe I don't have to do that. Like maybe I can just, it's like a free flowing thing, and whatever I'm feeling, you just, when I'm in that mode of writing or creating something, jotting stuff down, it's I don't have to necessarily have just finished meditating. Not that I really always do that anyway. Okay, another thing, collaborate with others. So if there's a project that you want to get done, or something that you've always kind of thought about, sorry, I'm shedding. This is obviously an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, like you want to get on Google Docs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Google Docs. So Google Docs, I'm sure a ton of you know about Google Docs. Google Docs, you basically, it's like, I talk about it as if it's always been there. You have Google account, Gmail, someone much more technically savvy can explain this, but you basically create something that's essentially, it's like Google Docs. So it's like these documents, almost like a Word document or in your notes or whatever. And you can write in there, but other people, you can share it with other people and they can write in real time. So there's Chris Pratt, by the way, he identified this perfectly, where he said, Google Docs are my love language. Like if I send someone a Google Doc, Like I'm saying, I love you. It's really, whenever I get excited, I'm like, let's start a doc, let's start a new Google Doc. But you can invite people into it and you can write at the same time. And that has been really game changing for me. There are a couple of projects that I'm working on with writing partners. And that's been, Google Docs is really helpful. Writer's Duet has been really amazing. And I've been able to collaborate with one of my writing partners, David Larchman Murray, in Los Angeles, which I'm saying is over there. I don't know. And so that's been wonderful because you feel a sense of connection, you feel a sense of collaboration. There's a real time. It's not just you're talking and then you get off and you work independently. It's very, it's kind of amazing when you get 1, 2, 3, 4 people into a Google Doc at once. What gets created is awesome. Document. Yes. Okay. So here's something. So if like writing something new, creating something new, all of that is not really your jam, like that doesn't feel like totally like scrumptious and inspiring to you, like don't do that. But what I would say is at the very least document to, just kind of writing down your thoughts right now, taking videos, personal vlogs, just keeping track. This is a historic moment. This is something that you will talk about for years and years and years and years and years. And so definitely, for you and your story and your life's journey to document this moment and keep track of it, that can be its own kind of salvation. Really, it's tragic yet powerful example of this is Anne Frank. Anne Frank documented her experience in hiding, and thank God. That gets me emotional. People, man, human beings are incredible, unbelievable. Okay, so another incredible example is in a book that I would recommend right now, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Oh my gosh, it's an astonishing book, and it's his account of surviving the Holocaust. But really, it's more. I took a class about positive psychology, and this is where we were, really diving into his work and his groundbreaking work, because he was in the absolute, just like the most hellish situation imaginable, and the strategies that he used and the ways in which he got through that, not just in terms of his survival, but his like mentally and emotionally, because this time is about physical survival and it is about physical well-being, but it is very much so also about mental well-being and emotional well-being. And I've certainly learned that myself this last week with lots of ups and downs. Something that I would say is this is sort of like a no-brainer, but like this is just like common sense, and yet sometimes I don't follow my own advice. Just like date everything that you're writing, put a date on it. Like just always put a date on it, because you're going to want to stay organized with whatever you're documenting or creating. And sometimes things can get like very unwieldy and or even if you have one document, like one Google Doc, and you just, for every day, just put a date and then another date. Hope this is helpful. I'm like, date your documents. Yes. Okay. And then what I would also say is, when all else fails, write letters to your loved ones. Something that is really powerful to start with is I remember. So if you think, if you're able to recount a happy time, a meaningful time, the best would be to write thank you letters. Thank you letters would really, really, really mean a lot to folks. So I would just recommend reaching out to your loved ones, writing letters, writing accounts of things that you have shared together in the past, so that you can, kind of re-experience it together. It's certainly powerful. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, yes. So what I would say is if you're an adult, or if you're like, whatever age you are, I would reach out to younger people in your life and share with them experiences that you've been through that are, I mean, there's nothing that you can really compare this situation to, I would say necessarily in our lifetime. But I could, for me, in terms of what I've experienced. But there are things that I have experienced that, are sort of like cousins to this. Like, I was trapped downtown after 9/11, going to school there. And that week there below 14th Street, after physically watching the towers fall and not knowing what was going to happen, that was for Seth and I, that was, for all of us who are in New York and around the world, that was a really, really, really a time of uncertainty. And so share, for instance, my, and I was just leaving, or I was at NYU at the time, and just close-ish to leaving. I was a junior. And so my NYU students, I just shared with them that, it's, I felt like at that time leaving school, I felt like there was going to be no future. I felt like movies were pointless, and, like I was going to go and enlist and have to, fight. And so just being someone who's 39 years old, being able to talk to my, 20, 21, 22-year-old students and say, like, listen, there is a future beyond this, and to soothe them, because of that personal experience, that's a very limited thing, what I'm talking about right now. And I'm sure all of you have so much more to share with your loved ones, but that's just something that I think could potentially be, helpful for our kids, for the young people in our life, just to reach out and share, what we've experienced in the past. I reached out to, I talk to my parents every single day, all day long, basically. They're just my dad is I am still working, Bryce. I am still working. But he was sharing with me yesterday, just, his experience of going through the 60s and Kent State and Vietnam and Kennedy's assassination and Martin Luther King's assassination, and, just all of those events that were absolutely, it felt like, how can we move on from this, basically. And they did. And human beings are incredibly resilient, unbelievably resilient. And so we can look to history. We can definitely look to history. If you're younger, reach out to the older folks in your life and ask them what you want to learn. Ask them what you're curious about. Definitely seek to understand this moment for yourself, because otherwise it's just a lot of going online and reading the news. And so talking to people who are older than you, or if you are older than someone, having a conversation with someone who's younger, to just sort of bridge the generation so that we don't all feel alone in this. Okay, so okay, so there's a couple of wonderful questions that some folks have asked in advance, and so I'll wrap it up with this. So there's a few questions here. So and again, just to reiterate, and for those of you who weren't on in the beginning, I teach a class at NYU, and the class is called Making It and Mastery, and it's basically we all want to make it, but really the name of the game is mastery. I mean, making it is part of it too, for sure. It's just something that you can control less, whereas mastery is something that you can really control. So so these, just know these are some questions I'm always going to kind of be answering from that place. By the way, if any of my students are watching right now, hello, and I hope you are all very, very well, and I miss you and adore you all. You're spectacular. Okay, so what do you do when you're hitting a creative block in a time of crisis? And this is from a gentleman named Dustin, or someone named Dustin. So what do you do when you're hitting a creative block in a time of crisis? It's creating regularity I think it's like it's this new normal that we have right now. And we don't want this to be normal. Like, we're like, no, please, we don't want this to be our future. But we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know how this is going to turn out. So creating a routine and a rhythm for yourself, that will allow you to kind of get into that habit and that practice of like, you're jotting stuff down. You're taking a time out during the day to actually move or create, or, we're seeing all these absolutely extraordinary and inspiring videos from Italy, folks singing on their balconies to one another, reaching out and connecting. And so the more that can be part of your day-to-day routine, that's how I get through blocks. Blocks are, you sort of want to like prevent a block way in advance by having a routine that makes it impossible for you to experience a block. And so more, it's like when I'm experiencing, it's not a block, it's just I'm like bad for a little while. Like I'll start to not be like, I'm like, this isn't working. But just getting through it is sort of the task at hand. How are you creative with limited supplies and whatever you have at home? This is from Mariah. Great question, Mariah. So, gosh, it has to do with what is the thing that you're most into, right? So for me, if I didn't have a pen and paper, that would be really tricky for me. That would be difficult. I would probably at that point, I'm like, if I don't have a pen and paper, I'm going to use my phone. I love that that's the plan B. Even just recording my voice is something that I would want to do if I didn't have a paper and pencil. But honestly, what I would say is that, necessity is the mother of invention. If you don't have access to something, look around with new eyes. We're so used to grabbing the thing that we need and want and like exactly that thing, as opposed to looking around and being like, this could be that. I'm just kind of being in my situation right now, it's sort of, and I'm not wanting there to be supplies or anything passed from our house to here. It's for sure there's been lots of stuff that I've been like, this works for that. Oh, I can use this for that. Oh, that's interesting. So that's something that I would just like lean into that. Let that be something that allows you to discover a new way of creating, working, being, expressing yourself, because of the limitations. And also I should say, like, I'm wanting to be positive through this. Like it's impossible to not acknowledge the how devastating this is for all of us, and specifically for those who are incredibly vulnerable at this moment, physically, financially, emotionally, whatever, traveling, whatever it is. And so it's like, it's hard sometimes. I don't want to be positive, and yet somehow that like undermines the fact that is like very serious things are happening right now, and we need to support one another. So again, it's like in terms of being like, how do you create when you have so little? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of us that we don't have access to many of the things that we need right now. And so that it's important to acknowledge that. And then the next step is to say, okay, how can those limitations somehow free you? What new thing could be discovered that would never have happened before if you had access to, the oil paints or whatever. Okay, so here is Valeria. How do you stay motivated? I would say it's just kind of like I create little things that force me to be motivated. Like how I said I was going to do an Instagram live, so I had to be motivated to shower. I showered once last week. I mean, I admitted that. And so I was like, I need to shower. Now, I've wanted to do something as well. But honestly, it's like, as you can see, I was like very warm at the start of this Instagram live because I was sweating because I just run out of the shower. So that's helpful. You know, if you create these like appointments, almost like if you have a friend and you're like, okay, I'm gonna at 3:00 on Tuesday, we're gonna get on the phone and we're gonna figure out this, and this, and we're gonna start a Google Doc together, and I'm gonna work on this, and you're gonna work on that, and we're gonna have that appointment. So you know what? I would say make appointments. How to stay motivated to make appointments, because it's very hard to stay motivated. It's much easier to just have to do something, you know, to assign yourself like, oh, you're gonna have to show up in this way. And then that just keeps the motivation naturally going. I just had a great workout session with Simon Waterston, a gentleman who just joined Instagram. I'm very proud of him. Simon Waterston Performance is his tag. And he, you know, just making the appointment with Simon means I'm going to be working out, you know, like that's going to be happening. And so that's just one example. Okay. How are you staying physically active? So I use that as an example. It doesn't mean that there's so much incredible stuff online, that you can do, but I would just say to make the appointment for yourself. The New York Times has this like 7-minute workout that I really like. And I'm fortunate because I'm in my kind of like, this is an apartment above our garage, and downstairs is, like we use our, garage space as a like workout situation. So I have some equipment, which I'm super, super stoked about, but you don't need equipment to work out, like for sure. Your body weight is amazing. And something that Simon said this morning was, he was like, you know, it's like we all went into this one way. The question is, how are we going to come out of it? Like, who do we want to be once we're all leaving self-isolation, quarantine, social distancing? Who are the people that we want to become during that time? And I found that to be very, very, very motivating. So I'll probably wrap this up pretty soon. Because I in particular, what I teach is, it's for multi-hyphenates, folks who are actors who also write and direct and produce and dance and are activists and are, you know, just doing lots of finding different ways to creatively express themselves, and to share and to make an impact in the world. And so, one little question, last question here is, what is the best practice for someone who wants to be multidisciplinary? So if you have been doing something, but you want to try something now, or something else, what I would say as the best practice is to do it. You know, there's a wonderful writing program that I did called, Writer's Boot Camp, run by this guy, Jeff Gordon. He would always say the secret to writing is writing. So just by starting. But again, in order to start, you don't need to do anything in order to start, but you know, having little kind of readings that you're able to pick up, that can hopefully inspire you is something that definitely motivates me. Listen, I'm gonna sign off soon. I really appreciate all of you for joining. We're so lucky that this is happening during a time when we are able to still connect with one another. Otherwise, I would truly be going crazy. Make sure to take care of yourselves, your loved ones. The best way to take care of yourself and your loved ones are to socially distance yourself. And I would just say, you know, like, yeah, just be here. Be here. Be here in the world right now. And get a piece of paper, get your instrument, get a paintbrush, and start doing it, because that's one of the things that is, it's one of the best gifts of being a human being, is that we get to create stuff. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing, reading, and experiencing your creations. Please, please, please feel free to share. I don't know all of the rules with Instagram. I don't know if it's about like reposting or DMing or whatever, but I'm so eager to experience everything that you all are working on and creating. And thank you so much. Thank you so, so, so much. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. How do I stop it, everyone? How do I stop it? End. Okay. Mwah.